Thank you very much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here and to present you some of our experiences and projects. The Lake Constance Foundation is an environmental NGO funded in 1994. We have different focus areas and sustainable agriculture and sustainable food business sector. We are working on that right from the beginning, mainly on biodiversity, but also on climate mitigation and sustainable climate adaptation. Today, I will present you two of our own projects, and then a joint initiative in Germany with different stakeholders from the food supply chain. Here we go. So the very first example I want to present you is the so-called Planet Biodiversity project here at Lake Constance. It's a joint project by stakeholders from the market. So it's Rewe Group, one of the big retailing companies in Germany, groups from Bodensee, the Farmers Association, the Association of the Apple Farmers, and we as the environmental NGO. We found together in 2009, developing a concept for a biodiversity project in those apple orchards at Lake Constance. And right in 2010, so 12 years ago, some pilot farms, 10 pilot farms started to implement measures with the goal to enhance the situation of the insects and especially of the wild bees and pollinating insects in and around those apple orchards at Lake Constance. Since then, this project has developed. So we started with 10 pilot farms. Now we have every year around 140 to 160 apple farmers that are joining the project, and they are implementing mainly measures regarding flowering areas and installing nesting aids for wild bees. The project was also expanded to other apple producing regions in Germany and in Austria. So all those regions that are bringing apples to Rewe Group, they are part now of the Planet Biodiversity project. So I think regarding apples, it's about more than 500 farms every year participating. And what is quite interesting and important that right from the beginning, the apples, so the products, were signed with this ProPlanet label. So there was a communication towards the final consumers that those apples have an added value for nature. And this project, from my point of view, is really a success for nature, because what we did right from the beginning was installing a biodiversity monitoring, or more concrete monitoring for wild bees. So in the first year in 2010, we had this status quo monitoring, and as we expected, there was a quite poor number of wild bee species we found in and around the orchards, and also around or in the measures, the concrete measures that the farmers implemented. Just to give you an idea, so in our federal state of Baden-Württemberg, we have a total number of 460 wild bee species, but we only found a bit more than 50. And we did every 3 to 4 years now, we do a monitoring. As you can see, the numbers were getting better and better. And finally, 8 years after the start of the project in 2017, we really found, from our point of view, a high number of wild bee species, more than 100. And the monitoring last year shows similar figures. So there we found about 112 different wild bee species, and a similar number also of endangered wild bee species. So what I want to show you is not only that our project is important, but also that it's important to have a biodiversity monitoring to detect the real effects on biodiversity by a project. So the characterization of this ProPlanet Biodiversity project is that we have a wide catalog of potential measures that the farms can implement. So they have a certain flexibility of what they do, in which dimension they contribute to the project. The regular wild bee monitoring is very important to demonstrate not only to the consumers, but also to the farmers that there is an effect of what they are doing. I think very important is also an important characterization of this project is that there is a cooperation or collaboration with conservation experts at Lake Constance. This is Lake Constance Foundation, but in Germany, the conservation partner is NAB. And very important too is this long-term implementation. So we have started this project in 2010, and we're still going on. And this project hopefully will never end. So there are plans to develop it and to make it even more effective. Regarding the valorization or the put in value of this ProPlanet project, so Rewe pays every year for the implementation of measures. So they pay the seed mixtures, they pay for the nesting aids and the planting of hedges and stuff like that, or the maintenance of extensive orchards. There is no higher price in purchasing or no higher price in sales. So the apple you buy in Rewe with the ProPlanet label normally is not more expensive. And but there's also a valorization not in money but by communication. So also for the apple farmers, participating in this project is really a proof of activity, and in combination with the positive monitoring results, they can prove and communicate for themselves too that they are really acting for more sustainability for biodiversity. And 2 years ago or 3 years ago here in the federal state of Baden-Württemberg, we had a referendum, Save the Bees, and there were many conflicts between conservation organizations and the farmers organizations. And I think this project here was very important for the farmers and had really a value for them that they could prove and demonstrate that they are already active in a very positive way for nature. Then the next example that I want to present you is a collaboration with Alpgold. Alpgold is a family-driven pasta producer also here in Baden-Württemberg, so in the south of Germany. And they source their durum, so their main commodity, they source it only from Germany. Then they wanted to go a step further and they wanted to create more sustainability effect. So not only the regional production, but also they wanted to have an additional biodiversity value in durum production. So we came into collaboration at the Lake Constance Foundation and also the IFAB Institute, the Institute for Agrobiology and Biodiversity. And we took some time to find a good project design and a good mode, how to come to the goal that there is a lasting added value, not only by regionality, but also for more biodiversity. There were 4 principles in the end. And I want to just present you that. So in this project, we don't have a wide catalog of measures, but we focus only on 2 biodiversity measures. That makes it more feasible also for the farmers. That was their response. So we focus on extensive cropland and on the high quality flower strips, and this means perennial flower strips. So the farmers have only to implement those 2 measures. The principle 2 is we have to find the scope. So if, for example, a farmer is producing 10 hectares of durum for Alpgold, then they have to implement an additional hectare of biodiversity-related farmland with these 2 measures I presented you. So it's very clear defined how much they have to do and what the farmers have to do. The principle 3 is that there's a certain flexibility for the farmers. So the share between measure 1 and measure 2, they can put it in practice as it is feasible for their farm. And principle 4 is perhaps the most interesting and the most important. AlpGold is really paying for that. They are paying for, in this case, biodiversity quality. So they pay farmers 60 euros per hectare of durum wheat, or if you translate it or transform it to the 10% of biodiversity area, they pay 600 euros per hectare of biodiversity measures. So for AlpGold, and this was also important for us as an environmental NGO and also for IFAB, right from the beginning, we discussed it with AlpGold that it is important to have a long-term strategy. And AlpGold really was ready and did it. They integrated now this let's say, sustainability requirements into their general quality requirements. So this is part now of every contract with the farmers they do. And also very important that we have also here a regular biodiversity monitoring that is implemented by IFAB. So it's a clear goal of this activity that we will try to monitor the hopefully positive impacts on biodiversity. For the farmers, we see the advantages by the payment, of course. So they get an incentive from AlpGold. They got now long-term supply contracts. Normally they have contracts for 1 year. Now the aim is to have contracts for 2 or 3 years. Of course, they will be part of the positive communication and that they are contributing to this more diverse or more biodiversity in landscapes. So from my point of view, or from the project partners, also from the farmers, we had some pilot farms testing the measures and giving them technical advices and stuff like that. So everybody was ready. And the criteria were implemented in last year, 2021. But now the project is on hold. And the reason is that there was a massive crop failure around the world regarding durum last year due to weather conditions. So the prices went up for durum, and the farmers now were not ready to subscribe this contract and not ready to accept those additional biodiversity criteria. So that's the situation now. We have a very good concept and a good project design, and everybody was willing to implement, but now the market situation is not ready. So we have to wait, and hopefully we will start the implementation now this year or latest next year. Just some other examples. I don't want to go into details. I'm really a fan of the IAP Swiss biodiversity scoring system. IAP Swiss is a quite large farmers association in Switzerland, and they, I think, about 15 years ago, they started to implement this biodiversity scoring system, and it's really related also to the market, to one of the big Swiss retailers, Nico. Another very interesting concept was started in France. There it's called La marque du consommateur, c'est qui le patron. But now they are also expanding to other countries, also to Germany, and we have now first products also in the supermarkets in Germany by this consumers initiative. And it's really worth to check their websites and to get in contact with their idea how to design products, and also because the design of the product is directly linked to the price of the product. So this is a kind of also a kind of real life experiment regarding the willingness to pay. And just one own project here from Lake Constance Foundation is the insect responsible sourcing region. It's a live project. We started autumn 2020. the idea is to implement insect responsible sourcing regions, mainly with agriculture and the food sector, but also with other stakeholders regarding land use. And the valorization of insect or biodiversity effects is one of our main goals. So we have different strategies now. We try to develop different strategies to put in value the efforts of the farmers and the food sector. Once with regional brands, but also, for example, in one region, we collaborate with Kaufland and some potato farmers, try to find solutions for more biodiversity in the potato field, but also how can we have an attractive incentive for the farmers to implement more biodiversity friendly measures. And I come now to almost to the end of my presentation. I want to present you now a joint initiative. It's an association that was funded in March 21, and it's called Food for Biodiversity. Currently, we are located in Germany. It's a concrete output of a former live project on food standards and biodiversity. You see here the current members of this association. So we have different actors from food standards, but also from the food business sector, so food industry, but also food retailers. We have some NGOs and also scientific organizations. And the idea is of those associations is to bring together the different stakeholders for more common action. So we want to anchor this, the idea of biodiversity protection as a central concern of this food sector and also of all the stakeholders of the value chain. And of course, this association should contribute to a transformation towards more sustainable food production and food systems. And it's not only being member of an association and have regular meetings, but also as a member, you commit yourself to certain principles and activities. And you see here the main activities and principles. And one main principle is that a so-called base set of biodiversity criteria should be implemented. So the funding members of the association, they developed a so-called base set for biodiversity. It's about 60 different criteria, and it should not be a new biodiversity standard, but the idea is that the members use this base set and they should compare their specifications with this basis set and then to integrate or to develop their own criteria. So it's kind of orientation for them. Another important thing is that they should really have in mind that more biodiversity means mostly more costs and that there should be an appropriate share of costs in the value chain. Biodiversity monitoring system, of course, as I already told you, we think this is key, that you can not only show what you do, but also what the effects of the implementation are. Training for different actors is one important criteria, and this is also now the association members start with the implementation of pilot projects. So we want really concrete activities, and first pilot projects are now designed and the implementation has started. If you are interested in more information or even in membership in this association, you see here the email address from my colleague Ralf Deas from the Global Nature Fund, one of the funding members of the association. They are coordinating the association, so just get in contact with him and you will get more information. And this is the last slide, just some very easy takeaway messages from, I do that now for around 20 years, projects in that style. So I think if you start to valorize sustainability, biodiversity, or climate mitigation things, I think it's really important that you define your actions and that these actions really create an added value. So it has to make a difference. I think this is really important. Then if you do a project, or if you want to go a step further, I think it's very important that you cooperate or collaborate with sustainability experts. It must not be an NGO, but normally it is an NGO, it can be an NGO. You can also collaborate with scientific organizations, but as a food or farming company, it's good to have those collaborations and experts. Then be aware of the costs, and I think it's important that there are incentives for farmers. It's key that you have incentives for the implementation, because sustainability does not come for free. The regular monitoring, not only of the input, we have done many hectares of, but also of the outputs. So the sustainable impacts are really important that they are monitored, because they are also very important for the communication and the success. Equal partnership is key from my point of view, that you have not one who is determining the project idea and how the implementation has to be done, but also that you really work on the same level, and these are partners. I think this is important if you want to have a long-term project. And finally, sustainability is so important, and everybody, or most of the people, are interested in now. So there are lots of stories to tell. It's important to communicate what you are doing, and it's important to convince the consumers, to enforce their willingness of payment. So thank you for listening. This was a short view on our practical experience and our practical work in Lake Constance Foundation. Thank you very much.